My name is Will Pangman. I'm originally from the Milwaukee area in Wisconsin. I started the Milwaukee area Bitcoin meetup, and it quickly grew to kind of like a community outreach group, and helped kind of Chicago kind of beef up what they had going on. They would support our community because what we were doing was so exciting up there. So I've spent a lot of time focused on education, and had a bunch of cool ideas, I guess. Of course, now I'm at Airbits, but I just wanted to chime in about the airdrop idea. You know, I've been kicking around this idea of going geocaching, and I just want to like plant the seed for everybody. If you take like $1 or $2 worth of Bitcoin loaded on paper wallets, go geocaching and leave them in the geocaches. The people who do geocaching are kind of like adventurous people, and they're open to trying new things, and that's why they leave their homes to go out in the real world and find these little time capsules and stuff. And I think that's the kind of person who's ripe for Bitcoin use. So think of that. I don't know. I've been trying it in San Diego, and it's been going pretty well. There's one spot I go back to a lot, and every single time it's gone. So think about that. And so work at Airbits now doing marketing, and let's see, going forward, Airbits is going to make Bitcoin easy for the masses.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tone Vase. I spoke earlier today, but I will give my background one more time real quick. I'm hailing here from New York, and I've been working on Wall Street for about 10 years, companies like Bear Stearns, JP Morgan, MSCI. And somebody on the previous panel said, well, if I had 10 million, I would just quit my job and promote Bitcoin, or is over there. And I don't have 10 million, but that's kind of what I did about 3 months ago. Quit my job and decided to work in the Bitcoin space. And we'll see how that turns out real soon. But now I actually like traveling the world and speaking at conferences and promoting Bitcoin. And also on the last panel, there was, what would you do with $10 million for Bitcoin? And this is something I've been saying for a while, and I don't understand why one of the VCs hasn't done it. You have 10 million to invest in Bitcoin new technology. You spend 1 million of it and buy Bitcoin, and then you spend the other 5 million on PR campaigns and commercials and just promote Bitcoin. I'm not a huge fan of airdrops, giving away something for free. People don't really care. But I think the VC could have paid off real well if they bought $1 million worth of Bitcoin at the right time, and then instead of funding companies for 100 million that may or may not succeed, just promote Bitcoin. Bitcoin itself is the killer app.
My name is Blake Anderson. I am an autodidact polymath kind of attempting person. I want to try to learn as much as I can. There's a couple of different fun examples of why somebody would want to do that. One is the time traveler example. If you were thrust through time, how much would you be able to help or not? And that's an extreme example, but I think that in an anarcho-capitalistic, individualistic society, it's good to try to add as much value as you can. There's a saying, jack of all, master of none, but it's not the full saying. It's jack of all, master of none, but infinitely better than a master of one, and it's supposed to be about being well-rounded and not pigeonholing yourself. So I have an MIT online education. My career kind of climaxed with Fortune 25 finance. I worked in information technology project management for math-based security, saw the value proposition that Bitcoin represented, especially with the unit of value being fused with the IOU, had implications for arbitrage, and I started going through and trying to make money that way. After a while, the order books of exchanges became a bit thin to scale that approach, and I began working more on infrastructure and trying to basically build out the circle of trustlessness that Bitcoin represents. So I'm pretty stoked about Bitcoin, to say the least.
So I was on the last panel, but I'm MK Lords, and I'm the community manager at Airbits. And I credit the Bitcoin group with just teaching me a lot about so many different aspects of Bitcoin. And it's so fascinating because we're a panel show. We kind of focus on the news of the week, and it's amazing how fast time travels, like in the Bitcoin space. It's kind of its own like time warp, and it's really awesome. It's been amazing to be able to comment on everything. I mean, going back to 2013 stuff. I actually, to kind of go back into my background before Bitcoin, I was working at Roberts & Roberts, which is a precious metals brokerage firm, and I was a bit of a skeptic at first, and it was through like my libertarian friends and people being like, no, you have to like look into this. This is crazy awesome. You have to do it. That I eventually, just through self-education, became a believer in Bitcoin. So yeah, it's been an awesome ride, and yeah, I guess are we almost ready?
Wait, so are you ready? Is there anyone in the audience that still does not have a Bitcoin wallet and some Bitcoins? Don't be shy, you can raise your hands.
I know Rob.
Uh-huh. Anybody? Everyone in the audience is now a Bitcoiner. You don't? All right, Paul or Rasa, one of you better get over there. iPhone or Android? Android, Rasa.
How many people didn't have Bitcoin before they came?
That's a good question. How many did not have Bitcoins before they got here? We got a couple more. Do you have them now?
Yes.
Excellent. We can get the audience more involved. Should I pick on random people? Any questions? Well, we'll do questions first. How about that? How's that for a change? Any questions for the people on the panel? There you go. We got a question right there. Bring the mic over.
Yeah, so my question, I didn't really get to ask to the last panel, but they were talking about payments and consumers basically versus merchants, right? And I'm just wondering what your guys' take would be on some of the payment cards that have come around, like you created like a Bitcoin debit card and stuff like that, because it would have a deflationary effect on the prices, and I'm not sure if you favor that side over the other, so I'm just wondering what you would think about that as a concept.
That's a good question. I would definitely love to comment, but anybody want to go first?
Well, it's a basically we have derivatives that stem from dollars and then derivatives that stem from Bitcoin. So if you can really have a credit debit system that is pinned under Bitcoin in a robust system that's well implemented, I mean I can't imagine that there would be any harm there. It would be a great way to get some tendrils back to build bridges from the legacy system into Bitcoin and get more people involved. So I mean there would be risk with implementation, but if it was implemented correctly, and again a derivative of Bitcoin instead of a derivative of the dollar, I mean there's nothing but value that I can see there.
All right. Well,
I'll just play a little contrarian. Yeah, I've been watching these closely. I mean, I got started in Bitcoin with the meetup, and that quickly turned into like consulting opportunities. And I would frequently be tasked with doing due diligence for some friends of mine who wanted to, they're private equity investors, and they were looking at Bitcoin companies, very excited about it, and look at a lot. They were really wanting something like a debit card play. And this was, 2 years ago and stuff, so, it was very immature, and I saw a couple of models of how that could work, and none of them ever got off the ground. But recently, WageCan is a service that you can load debit cards with Bitcoins, and I have friends who use it and really, really enjoy it, and I need to actually sign up for it because I like to try a little bit of all the services in space if I can. But yeah, I think it's people are familiar with paying with cards, so you're going to create a user experience for Bitcoins and cards, like people can interface with Bitcoin with cards. That's a temporary, interesting kind of ramping new users into Bitcoin, and as we see the ebbs and flows of the price and stuff, maybe that means more of those people want to go directly to Bitcoin. But yeah, I've always been a bit skeptical based on all the research I did on the space early on. I haven't seen much of the new stuff, but it's so tricky to do what debit card, Bitcoin companies and plays are trying to do. So good on them for trying, but a lot of my acquaintances who've tried have moved on to cooler ideas than that. Let's just put it that way.
right, that was supposed to be contrarian. All right. He hears. You want to say something? All right.
So I think they do provide a familiarity to people who are unused to Bitcoin. But I think once people start actively using Bitcoin, they realize how much cooler it is to just pay from your phone than using a piece of plastic. And I think while maybe there may have been a time for that, I don't know that I don't know how long that kind of model would last. I mean, because it is just so much easier to pay with your phone. I mean, it's all there. So, I mean, I think just Bitcoin feels cooler to use than a card. And I think that kind of coolness factor, will end up winning people over.
I just wanted to add really quick. I think that the coolness factor is there, but also in the light of the success of Apple Pay. Apple Pay came out and people thought, okay, there's almost no barriers between people using this, and the use of Apple Pay has not met the expectations of certain people. So given that information, it might be good to dial back to maybe a half iteration or implementation of something where let's bring people into cards. Maybe it's not ready for people to go completely digital yet. How can we still affect change and bring people in? And a card might be a good way of doing that if the implementation can be risk managed properly.
All right, so I'm going to do the contrarian view, and I'm going to agree with Megan. I'm going to take it one step further. I think, honestly, I'm probably going to piss off a couple of friends again that I know are in this business creating debit cards to spend Bitcoin. I think it's completely ridiculous. I think it's like a waste of VC money. Earlier, was it today or yesterday? And I believe it was Edmund Moy when he was saying about flying cars have to follow the rules on the road of stop signs flying through the air. But I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna do this a different way. So I'm gonna reach into my pocket, and I have, let's see, a key card to my room, a player's card, my ID. I actually don't carry my license unless I know I'm driving. I carry the passport card because 90% of the time you give your ID to, they don't need to know where you live. They don't need to know what state you're from. So I actually carry the passport card around. In here, there is a credit card, and I didn't even bring my wallet. That's in the room, I hope. Credit card here, debit card here, ID card, a bunch of business cards, cash, a coupon that I never used for the restaurant, other people's business cards, cash, and in this pocket I have casino chips. And this is all ridiculous. It should all be in here. Okay? And I was at Money 2020, caught the last day of Money 2020, spoke to one of the vendor companies, and they actually had like a little machine, almost the size of my cell phone, and it had its own keypad in there, and then you stick all of your credit cards into this another gadget besides your cell phone, and it scans it all in. This way you don't have to carry around your cards, but you can still pay for it with all of those different cards or gym memberships with another device with its own key. And the first thing I said to the guy was, why aren't you building this into the cell phone? And he says, everyone is asking me that. That's the first thing he said. And this is Money 2020. And then the next thing he says is, well, we don't think it's secure because this device doesn't go to the internet. And that was my like half an hour at Money 2020. And I said, I have no reason to be here. These guys are still like 20 years behind. And so I was going to end on with something. Yeah, and we should have got them here between rivets and what Ledger's doing with mycelium. There are ways to put things on your cell phone that do not go out to the internet. I mean, this is just, you just really can't think more than 1 year out, basically, is what those guys were doing. So everything in here. No debit cards. Bitcoin or something similar is the future.
I was at Money 2020 also. Here's what I wanted to get your view on. So what are you guys thinking about all the Apple Pay and all the different pay things? It makes me a little nervous as a person in Bitcoin because Chase Pay came out, and I don't know, they made a huge launch at Money 2020, so I went and I looked at the little, 45-second video. It was slick, it was easy, it looked like a transaction similar to what like a Bitcoin transaction was. We don't have like all the marketing dollars, and we don't have all the sizzle and everything in the Bitcoin community. Do you guys see that as a threat to delaying the uptake of Bitcoin because a very non-educated public thinks that it's just another way of doing Chase Pay?
No.
Yeah, I agree with Tone. I mean, the kinds of things that you'll be able to do with Bitcoin, you'll never be able to do with Chase Pay. So even just things you can already do that aren't even really financial transactions, like BitID, authentication to websites, replacing usernames and passwords. That's going to be huge if that catches on, and something like it will. So something like it will, and maybe it'll be Bitcoin wallets that are managing those keys, or maybe they're what Bitcoin wallets can morph into as well. Managing keys for authentication with important services and stuff. I see this as hugely applicable for maintaining control over your health records. HIPAA and mobile devices and just the internet in general is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's violations everywhere, and kind of the dirty secret is everyone knows that there are massive HIPAA violations, and the only ones that are getting enforced or prosecuted are the paper-based ones. So, yeah, it's a nightmare. So these things can be really helped by Bitcoin. They're not even financially related, but yeah, when it comes to paying, I mean, Apple Pay is suffering. Samsung Pay was recently hacked. Lots of trust lost there. Chase Pay, JP Morgan Chase was hacked not too long ago. Millions, I think 78 million customers at JP Morgan Chase were affected by this. So, yeah, I mean, until Bitcoin is hacked, which hasn't happened yet, considering a $10 billion bounty for several months there in 2013, still a pretty high bounty on that hack. Yeah, I'm very optimistic that the fault tolerance, as Blake likes to point out, of Bitcoin will win out.
That bounty of 10 billion would have gone straight to zero if it was hacked. So it's because then there would be a loss of faith in Bitcoin. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Just one quick comment besides my answer of no. No, they can really help Bitcoin because they will get the average consumer used to electronic payments. But sooner or later, they're going to realize that it's still government fiat and instantly taxed and can be confiscated. So sooner or later, they'll get back to the Bitcoin side. I'll let other people comment, but there's another question.
I was just going to piggyback on that. I mean, what makes you think that? I mean, it seems to be that
Which part?
if people are already okay using fiat, and if companies are innovating, micro innovating and borrowing and stealing, features from Bitcoin, and eventually, if the fiat currency
Well, I mentioned it in my presentation. People are okay using fiat until your country has a Cyprus or a Greek event. So right now, because of the Greek event, people in Italy and Spain are thinking twice about their fiat. And when Italy goes, people in Spain and Portugal and Germany will think twice. And when all of Europe goes, people in the US are really going to start to think because we're no different.
So we do have to wait for some kind of economic disaster before Bitcoin has a fundamental use? Is that what you're saying?
Before the average consumer realizes the Bitcoin's true potential, most likely. And it's also a good thing. If half the world got on Bitcoin right now, it would probably completely collapse under the weight.
It's interesting to think about, where the next large wave of adoption is going to come from. And I think it's going to come in two ways, for sure. One will be what you guys were just talking about. Crisis areas will definitely attach themselves to Bitcoin as a steam valve to the suffering in their situation, and that will happen. We've seen it happen already with Cyprus, and we're seeing lots of this in certain Latin American countries. Brazil, Bitcoin is exploding in for this very reason. So it's going to come from the crisis and the pain, of course, unfortunately, because the systems in place are predatory and there's pain involved in correcting and reconciling all of that. But it also will come because, as we were pointing out earlier, and the last panel talked a lot about, because it's cool. Brian Sovereign talked a lot about how cool it's going to be to use cryptocurrencies in virtual reality. This is something that definitely, as he demonstrated very visually, will not be possible with fiat, and is something that Chase Pay will try and fail to emulate. And these other kinds of legacy rails. So yeah, it looks really cool. It's really glitzy demonstration at a huge conference for your annual kind of marketing bonanza. But yeah, I mean, people will forget that it didn't get the users it needed, and people will not forget Bitcoin.
Good to go.
Well, so to answer Susan's question, I think in the interim they are a force to be reckoned with because they have brand recognition and people trust them despite not realizing that maybe their security practices aren't very good. So I do think these systems have that kind of they already have maybe good reputations until they get hacked, until something happens. I think a lot of us on this panel get caught up thinking in the future and thinking way, way far ahead without realizing that we're still having to interact in a world that is like thinking, in terms of, 1 year in the future, 5 years in the future, instead of like decades in the future. And I think it's going to take a longer time for the culture to catch up with some of these ideas but I do think that Bitcoin can cover so many of these other areas that it will distinguish itself against these other forms of payment system in the long term.
I just want to add really quick, I agree with Megan. Ephemerally, it is a big problem. It is user experience, polished, that is something that anybody's going to use and want to use more than Bitcoin. However, it is based on fundamentally flawed assumptions, so in the long term, there are going to be risks there. But in the ephemeral, in the short term right now, yes, it is something. But there's also benefits. There's not just negatives. It's going to get people more and more used to digital value. So I think ephemerally, yes, it's something to compete with. In the long term, there's going to be a different set of considerations, so it's important to keep the full scope in mind.
All right, Thomas. Go on, start. Let's.
All right, the screen doesn't seem like it's going to work, so we'll go without the screen. Yay! Yeah. All right, so we usually do this on the internet, so I'm trying to start it on my laptop, so you can watch on the internet too. Why? Yeah. The Bitcoin Group. The American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Blake Anderson from Facebook.com/GotBlake.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Megan Lords from Airbits.
Howdy.
Tone Vase from Brave New Coin.
Hi, everyone.
And Will Pangman, also from Airbits.
Hello.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. This week, Issue 1, the price of Bitcoin hits 300 for the first time since July. Bitcoin is back, baby. Well, at least back to 300, the price it was in July of last year. We all watched the price, but as Andreas Antonopoulos warned on his Twitter account, Bitcoin is about much more than the price, and that while it's fun, volatility, even while going up, leads to uncertainty. That said, after gaining 25% in 1 month, will this price trend continue? Megan Lords.
Yeah, I think it'll continue for a while and then go back down. But yeah, so I would agree that while it's great because when the price rises, interest rises, just general interest. More people come out to conferences, more people want to learn about it. They're like, we saw this happen when the price skyrocketed up to 1,200. People were getting involved and they were really interested. They were like, I can make money with this. I can, use it. And then of course the price drops and interest kind of declines. But I'm kind of a fan of less volatility. I kind of like that the price has been more stable recently, even though it has been lower. I think it's ultimately been a good correction, and I'm definitely a fan of kind of more stable prices. But I do like that it's up. I can't complain about that.
Blake Anderson.
25% in 1 month is nothing to sneeze at, so I think we're all definitely happy about that. I think that it's interesting to comment on the things that we know for sure. Speculation is always fun, but we know for sure that the block halving is coming at some point next year. We should see a run-up as just, the laws of supply and demand are going to dictate that we're going to see a value increase. Is it going to be as big as the Willybot fiasco of the last halving? I mean, probably not, hopefully not. But I expect us to see a dial-up and then a drawback. So it's been sideways for a while, and we are always inching closer to that halving. So I think it wouldn't be too bad to get in on a four-year investment horizon and just stick with it.
Tone Vase.
So I think we just got up a little too far too fast. So I am expecting prices to come down a bit, probably to the 300 area, a little lower. And after that, I think it's looking good. I think we weathered some of the hardest storms. Still got to get through the scalability issue. And other than that, that's probably the next big hurdle is the scalability.
Will Pangman.
Well, you look on the long term, of course, as long as people still use Bitcoin, the price will continue to go up. But I kind of always default to my right-hand man here, Tone, who's been right so many times about price trends and stuff. So yeah, I think maybe we've seen it go high a little faster than maybe any of us may have expected. But yeah, this is going to continue as long as people use Bitcoin. It will continue to gain in value, and it's I feel like it's just prime. It's a perfect position for the next wave of adoption is between 300 and 500. So I'm really interested to see what kind of happens in that range of Bitcoin's lifespan, because the last time it spent extended time in that range was not a pretty time. So now that there's a lot more infrastructure, I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like on the way up.
All right, exit question, forced prediction. Will Pangman, what is the price of Bitcoin this time next week?
Same.
I'd say about 300.
Probably around 330.
242.
Ooh, the correct answer is 375. 375. Moving on to predictions or story of the week. Megan, do you have a prediction or a story of the week?
Well, I guess my story of the week is going to be a personal one. I just relocated across the country to San Diego to work for Airbits, and it's been really exciting. And then I came right over to this conference, and it's been great to see such an awesome, variety of speakers. And we had a special guest, Nick Zavo. That was awesome. And it's just it's been really great to be around so many like-minded people this week, and these kinds of events always reinvigorate my belief that Bitcoin will survive. So,
Blake Anderson.
Well, yeah, I was at a conference, Bitcoin Investors. You guys may have heard of it. It was a great conference. A lot of people talked about the infrastructural limits on expanding Bitcoin, which I thought was great. People talked about security, which was great. When we have too long going by without those discussions, that's not a good thing. And these times when the price is down, that's where the work is, and that's something that's very important to remember, that continually keeping up with security standards and things like that is an important focus to maintain. So coming to this conference and having so many people being aware of that and working on it was just made me really happy.
Tone Vase.
So I'm going to go with a prediction. The big news this week was the Blockchain Alliance, where a lot of these Bitcoin companies, about 15 of them, are joining with regulators and law enforcement to kind of have this one big thing. And you also have these companies that are trying to map out users and the history of all transactions. And I think that whole side of the industry is just going to end really, really badly. I really think that those companies, they're just wasting investor money, because the moment they find a way to identify users within the blockchain and the Bitcoin space, the next upgrade to the technology comes out that sets them all back to zero and start from scratch. So I'm kind of disappointed that these companies are actually getting money. I think I just think there's better places to invest, and investing in privacy is the future.
Will Pangman.
Well, I definitely want to echo the last comment Tone just made. I definitely agree that investing in privacy and security is the future. My story of the week is a blog post that came out today by Eric Voorhees on moneyandstate.com. I asked a question earlier, a couple of them actually, over the past couple of days, related to the whole Bitcoin versus blockchain narrative war that seems to be going on over the last year plus. It's been very interesting for me to watch. I look at it through the lens of a propaganda war, and it's interesting to see through that lens. But I also like to apply Hanlon's razor to this as well, and just analyze it from group psychology standpoint, simply. I'm really interested to see how this will play out, and I just want to encourage everyone to read Eric's blog that just came out a couple hours ago, or maybe even less. Fantastic clear, concise. It's lengthy, but it is just concisely put. What's up with this whole Bitcoin versus blockchain? And I just encourage each one of you to, take a side, pick Bitcoin or blockchain, and just defend it. It's up to you. I think if you do take a side and you're able to defend it, you'll be choosing the Bitcoin side. But that's I'm interested to see how this will play out, and I'd like to just put those earworms in your space.
You got one more topic there. One more topic.
It's already been flashing us the time symbol. So finally, a prediction. Everyone will have a great time at the Bitcoin Investor Conference. The Bitcoin Investor Conference, unlike other conferences designed for rich bankers and their cronies, will be a real chance for Bitcoiners to hang out and talk about the future of Bitcoin, not the future of privatized blockchains that don't really offer the same advantages as a shared ledger of value. It's taken the banks a while to realize that they went to the wrong conference. Oh, we're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.